I guess I make old cars better is the best way of describing it. So I suppose it stems back from my grandpa. He used to own a engineering shop in Clevedon, which is at the times where my family were from. My dad was born, and I suppose being mechanically minded, it just kind of rubbed off, and I suppose most boys are into cars, aren't they? So I guess my dad used to build cars, do the same as what boys are doing these days, really putting bigger engines in small cars. And I guess at the time, parts weren't readily available, so my dad and my grandpa used to make them. And yeah, that's how it sort of came along, really. You know, I mean, when I was born, my dad had he had a Mini. I vaguely remember. I think it was blue with a white roof. I think it was. And I mean, he had all the race prep bits on that, and he also had a Bedford van, which he'd done loads to it. He lifted the back end up, and he had I believe he had lights under the rear axle. You know, it was jacked up at the back, lowered at the front. You know, A-Team style, and he used to drive around in that. You know, big exhaust and things. And yeah, so as soon as I could walk, basically, I was into cars, anything with engines. You know, as I grew up, Dad sort of would build me little go-karts and things like that, and get into a bit of trouble in the local park. You know, driving these petrol go-karts around it. You know, when I was a little toddler, supervised obviously, and I remember being escorted home, me and my dad, by local PC Harris. He brought us back and had a word with my mum, who was also a police officer at the time actually, and said, you know, the boys are down the park again on their go-karts, not allowed, churning up the football pitch. And you know, I had monkey bikes and things like that, you know, petrol monkey bikes as a kid. So, you know, I had a really good upbringing really around engines. I think when I was, you know, around about 8, I suppose, I had stationary engines, and I got into old vintage tractors and things, and we used to go to the stationary engine shows and things. So I learnt about engines, the basic mechanicals and fundamentals of engines from a young age. And I suppose as soon as I was, you know, amongst friends that had the same interests, it sort of stemmed from there, really. My cousin Matt, he's 6 years older than me, so he could drive before I could. And so I used to be the annoying little, basically like a little brother, you know, always in the passenger seat of his car, cruising around the streets. And then I met his friends who were also into cars, and then I got into cars. And yeah, it stemmed from that, really. And I've been financially broke since, really. And I mean, it's a hobby which I've now stepped onto, you know, as a career. And I mean, to have a job that you absolutely love as part of your hobby is fantastic. And I'm very lucky, really. And we'll just see what happens with my sons. They're both petrol mad as well. They love cars. They've got little motorbikes and things. And at one point, my eldest, Cooper, at 5 or 6 years old, I think he had his go-kart. So yeah, much to the disapproval of his mother. But yeah, that's, you know, it's just boys and toys, isn't it? My favourite Rolls Royce or Bentley we've worked on. There's been quite a few. I don't really have a favourite, I suppose. The one that means the most to me, and probably my dad, I suppose, is a 1932 Rolls Royce 2025. It's like a primrose yellow one. And it was actually probably the first one the first vintage Rolls Royce that Dad was involved with, probably well over 20 years ago now. Dad he's carried out years and years worth of work on that car over a period of, you know, a long time. And It's a nice car. It's really up together. I've taken it to a couple of shows with Dad. I actually used it as our wedding car as well. And it's been a lovely car. What about you? What's your... This is Cooper, my son. He's been involved in a few of the cars as well. What's your favourite car?
I think it might be that one.
Oh, Cooper's saying the 4.5 R-Type Special that we were involved with. That's quite a nice car. Green Dragon, that one was referred to. What do you like about that, Cooper?
That's got a big engine and it's long.
Long with a big engine. We've actually got photos of Cooper sat in most of the cars that we work on over the years.
Yeah.
And he's a bit of a Bentley fan, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he loves them, so it could be quite expensive in a few years for me. But yeah, I mean, it's all too easy to go and buy kits, especially with the internet. You can buy kits online. There's parts are made, mass produced. You can just go and buy what you want. eBay, Amazon Marketplace. You can go there, you click, you've bought something. Go home, you bolt it to your car, and people say they built their car by bolting bits on that somebody else has done. It's not building a car. I mean, in most cases, we start with raw materials. We start with the sheet steel, the freshly cut timber, sheets of aluminium, and essentially we stick it all together and we build a car. I mean, most of the time the cars come to us as a pile of rust. Most of the bits missing. I mean, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then it's only us to blame, really. But it's all good fun. What got me into Volkswagens? I think it was primarily my cousin Matthew, actually. At the time, he had a Mark II Golf 8-valve GTI. I believe it was a late 80s or 90s spec car. And at the time, I had a Vauxhall Astra, and the Golf it was just brilliant, really. I just loved the noise it made. And it was just a really cool car to have. And at 18, I couldn't get insurance on a GTI. So I bought myself a 1.6 5-door Golf driver from an elderly chap round the corner. I owned a local newsagent. And straight away, I went about putting the GTI bumpers on it, GTI suspension, GTI wheels. I went from there, really, and basically built a GTI replica. And then as the months went on, I ended up buying a Volkswagen Jetta Mark II. And at the time, it was the craze to put Jetta front ends. It's a simple bolt-on conversion that people used to do. So I put a Jetta front end on it. Before I knew it, I sort of stuck the 1800 carburetor engine in it. Ended up smashing that car up, actually. Went into the back of a Fiat Punto at some traffic lights, so that put pay to that, and then somebody went into the back of me, so I got completely sandwiched. After that, I had a Mark I Golf Caddy, essentially a Mark I Golf pickup truck. I paid £65 for that. I paid for it, and the chickens had been using it to live in, so they'd use a chicken coop. So as you can imagine, the smell was pretty unbearable, and it was in an absolute mess. With the help from my dad, really guidance from Dad, we completely restored that, stripped it to a bare shell. I mean, there wasn't really much left of it. It was just a pile of rust. So we replaced pretty much every panel. We flared the rear arches. We did absolutely loads, and I ended up doing, it was a 1.6 non-turbo diesel, which couldn't even pull the skin off a rice pudding. It was horrendous. So we ended up putting a 1.9 turbo diesel engine out of a Mark III Golf, I believe. Put one of those in, tweaked the pump a little bit, up the boost pressure, bigger turbo, and away she went. And actually, it was very, very quick for a diesel. and got that car featured in a magazine, two magazines actually, two magazines in that. And then I had the craving for more power, wanted to go faster. In hindsight, it was a stupid idea, but at the time, I straight swapped it from a chap on the internet who was after a caddy. He had a Mark II Golf with a 2.8 VR6 engine swap. So I thought, great, great. Met him in a service station down near Portsmouth, and it was dark, and a rookie mistake, should have known better. The car had just been repainted. It looked stunning in Tornado Red, had the three-piece BBS split rims. Being a VR6, it made all the right noises, and it seemed really, really nice. So we just did a straight swap there and then. Dad drove the VR6 home, and we had a few issues on the way home, but nothing major. And it was from then on, it went all a bit south, really. We had major wiring issues with it. The radiator burst. It was just, in 12 days, it was just one thing after another, and the car was horrendous. And I think on the 13th day, showing off to one of my ex-girlfriend's brothers, I was doing ever so slightly over the speed limit, and the brake pedal just went straight to the floor, lost all brakes, ended up clipping the front of a Ford Mondeo and sending it through a 200-year-old stone wall, which didn't do wonders for the car, let's say that. And yeah, not much salvageable on that, unfortunately. But I did salvage the engine, believe it or not. The engine block was completely cracked, but we managed to completely rebuild it, stripped it down, rebuilt the engine, and things didn't quite add up with that engine, actually. It did have a bit of a silver lining, because as it turned out, that had a Volkswagen Motorsport built engine, which obviously the previous owner didn't know about, I didn't know about. Ended up having all sorts of strange pistons in it and things. Had a Volkswagen Motorsport stamped gearbox on it, which would explain why the ratios were really low. Anyway, I ended up buying a rolling shell. It was a 1.3 CL rolling shell 2-door, and it was painted in a beautiful cactus green, which I believe is on the loop hose, I think. Put the engine in that, completely rebuilt it, roll cage, done a few bits, and that car became sort of infamous, really. The registration number was KAT at the end, CAT, and everyone sort of knew it as CAT. And at the time, I think I was early 20s, and that thing was savage. Like, there wasn't much that could keep up with that on the road at the time. And I mean, that's how I really met a lot of my Volkswagen friends, because of that car. I went to a lot of shows, a lot of meets, down south and through Somerset and Devon, and that's how I met a lot of my friends. And it's nice to say I'm actually still in touch with those friends now. I think all of us have grown up and no longer into the Volkswagen. Well, I say most of us. I've still got a Corrado or 4, but yeah. Other than that, I've had a little dabble with a Mark III Golf VR6, and I put another VR6 engine in a Volkswagen Caddy van, an old Mark III van. That was good fun. So and helped cars up, friends out the way with it along the way with their cars. It's all been a good learning curve, and I'm still building these Volkswagens now. I've got I think in the last few years, I've probably built 4 or 5 for customers. The last 2 I've built was one had a Seat Leon 20 valve turbo engine. I've actually got one currently in the shop at the moment that's having a fair amount of work done on it. New chassis legs all round. The car's had a respray. That's got an Audi TT engine in it. Bit of a Frankenstein with regard parts on the car, but it's pretty much ready to turn the key and fire it up. I'm just waiting for a new relay to turn up for ECU, and then it's going to be off for live mapping and see if we can get it over the 300 horsepower mark. But that should be good fun, really. And then I need to crack on with my own Volkswagens, which I'm as my friends will tell you, it's a bit of a sore subject now. I think I'm into the 14th year of owning one of my Corrados, the race car. But I will I will crack on with that at some point. So where do we see the business going? Well, we've never had so many customers actually at the moment. We've got a lot of long-term restorations on the go, as well as the last 2 years, I suppose, we've had a huge influx in new customers. We were a bit concerned about the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and it's actually done quite the opposite. It's brought more people in, so it's quite nice. We've got as well as the vehicles, we've got the fabrication side of the business where we do all the fabrication, and we do a lot of bits for other restoration companies. They outsource to us, so we do a lot for them. And we also work for a motorsport company. We do a lot of fabrication work and make bespoke parts for the motorsport company. So that seems to be growing quite well. Our main Achilles heel at the moment is lack of space. We're currently desperately trying to find a bigger workshop, but trying to find one for sensible money is it's hard, to say the least. At the moment, we've got several premises. Unfortunately, they're scattered around. We've got the machine shop, we've got a storage facility and the workshop. It'd be quite nice to have it all under one roof, ideally. But at the moment, it's a struggle trying to find somewhere sensible. But as soon as we've found somewhere sensible, obviously we can take on more work. Our waiting list should go down. Hopefully we can look at taking somebody on, but there's a definite future, and we've actually got some exciting news which I will wait to share with you until the next couple of months. But yeah, there's definite future in it.